Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Seeds and Weeds podcast, brought to you by Small House Farm. Join us as we talk with gardeners, foragers, herbalists, chefs, and community activists to explore the many ways that plants impact our cultures and cuisines, our history, and our future. I'm your host, Bevin Cohen, and this is Seeds and Weeds. Welcome to the show, friends. We got another great episode for you today. We're going to be hanging out with Mary Colvin to talk about her new book, The Herbalist Guide, How to Build and Use Your Own Apothecary. Of course, we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of how to create an herbal apothecary. We'll also dig into things like herbal energetics, working with local plants, and plenty more. So you're definitely going to want to stick around for that. Before we jump into the interview, though, I've got some exciting news. When this episode goes out, my new book, The Heritage Pantry, will finally be off press and are ready to start shipping out. As is the nature of publishing, there were a few delays in getting this book out into the world, but at long last, those delays are behind us and the book is finally ready to go. First off, I owe some big thank yous to all the folks that pre-ordered copies of the book. I very much appreciate your early support of the project as well as your patience while we have waited and waited for the book to finally arrive. I've been talking about the book a little bit here and there on the show, but in case you missed it, I'll give you a quick rundown. Now, the book has 9 chapters, each one of them focused on a different method of food preservation, from smoking and dehydrating to canning and fermentation. And each chapter includes the history and development of each technique, plus equipment lists, stories, and recipes. Lots of recipes. And that was my favorite part, right? Developing the recipes was a delicious endeavor. And it's a beautiful book, too. The designers have done a wonderful job, and my very talented wife, Heather, did quite a bit of photography for the book as well. But the best part? The book is only $12.99. For real. And it is packed full of info. So this is a book that you're going to need to get. And of course, you can find it on our website, which is smallhousefarm.com. And that link, as always, down in the show notes. And while I got you here, I'd also like to give a quick shout out to our community over on Patreon, whose support helps make the show possible, right? We've had a few new members join us recently, including Audrey Nellett, Gwendolyn Partica, and Crystal Fulcher. Thank you all so much. And if you enjoy the Seeds and Weeds podcast and would like to show your support, please check out our Patreon community. Our members enjoy a number of benefits like free seeds, seasonal gift baskets, and even exclusive mini episodes of the podcast. Like usual, you can find that link for more info in the show notes or go directly to patreon.com/smallhousefarm. This episode is also brought to you in part by our friends at Garden Joy, the garden game that lets you explore your love for plants, seasons, horticulture, and outdoor design. With Garden Joy, designing stunning settings for your flower garden is not only fun, but it's also relaxing. Explore your creativity and design the garden of your dreams right now. While you play, you'll learn about plants, seasons, and outdoor design. You can find Garden Joy in your app store or visit their website, gardenjoygame.com. Mary Colvin is a registered herbalist of the American Herbalists Guild and the owner of Ancestral Herbology. She wants to continue to inspire a new generation of herbalists and provide education and mentorship in the study of herbalism with the safe practice of using herbs as medicine. She's devoted her time and efforts towards the future of herbalism as the former treasurer and vice chair of the American Herbalists Guild, the host of the Herbology Talk podcast, and as the host of the Training in Herbalism series on TikTok and through her website. Today, Mary's joining us on the show to talk about her new book, The Herbalist Guide. Mary Colvin, welcome to the podcast, my friend. I am so excited to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Now, you got a brand new book, just came out. It's called The Herbalist Guide, How to Build and Use Your Own Apothecary. And it is such a beautiful book. I just totally dig it, Mary.
Oh, I'm so glad that you had a chance to review it.
Now, I definitely want to talk about the book for sure. But before we get into it, could you just tell our listeners a little bit about, who you are, your background as an herbalist, and what led you to writing this amazing book?
Oh, sure. So I've been studying herbs for about 15 years, and I started because of my own health that I had going on. I had some back issues and sciatica, and I had to have some surgery. And afterwards, it didn't really fix the problem, and they thought I was going to be in pain the rest of my life. So I ended up walking out of the doctor's office because I did not want to take their medications anymore. I didn't want to do their cortisone injections. They told me that the fascia was damaged due to the surgery. So I ended up going to the School of Natural Healing. And after about 2 years and came up with my own formulas, and I did help myself along the way. I found out after I finished the schooling that I just didn't feel like I knew everything. So I continued my studies. And I've been, like I said, studying for 15 years, gone to different herbal conferences, studied with different teachers, and did a lot of webinars and books, of course. And what I realized is that for those people that cannot afford to go to schooling right now, or maybe they don't have the time in their schedule, or they're just too busy to do schooling anywhere else, online or elsewhere, they can study at home. But the problem is they don't usually have the guidance. So I thought that this book would be really good to do to guide them step by step. Here, learn this first, learn this next, and then have advice along the way, as well as some hands-on training. Now, there are a lot of really good books out there on herbalism. And what I've been asked throughout the years is, how do I get started into herbalism? What good books do you recommend? And the thing is, I didn't know what to recommend. I can recommend a whole list, but as far as one single book, I wasn't sure what to do. So I decided to write this book. And it's been 9 years in the making, off and on, step by step, little by little, I got it done and found my agent, found the publisher, and here we are.
You only need one book to get started. This might be the book that you need. I think you really hit it for sure.
I was originally doing this as a 3-book series, and it was going to be education at home, but mostly the publishers didn't want to, commit to 3 books. So we just worked on the first book, and it is a beginner book, but it can also be for intermediate, and they could still get benefits and still learn things from this book.
Now, you also host a podcast too, is that right?
I do. It's Herbology Talk. And this is one of my contributions to anybody that's studying at home or any student of herbalism. And I wanted to talk just about training and help them along the way. And so they could feel supported and they could get advice from different teachers and different schools and even students themselves on, how their journey in learning herbalism.
I dig that. I'm going to put a link for that down in the show notes for folks, because obviously folks tuning in here enjoy podcasts. So I'm sure they're going to dig that one too. But let's dig into this book a little bit, Mary. I really enjoy it. I love the way that the information in the book is laid out. It's very comprehensive from beginning to end. In the first section of the book, it's called Getting Started with Herbalism. And this section, covers everything from the different categories of herbalism to researching plants, botany. So for our listeners at home that are new to the world of herbs, or maybe just getting started on their journey, what advice do you have for them to help them get started on the right foot?
I have a webinar that's on my other website, herbalistmentor.com, and it's called Navigating the Study of Herbalism. And I think that's where you should get started. And it's about understanding your goals and what you want to do with the information and where you want to go with it. Anybody can learn the basics of herbalism. So my book is really a good start. But if they want to continue from there, they really need to get an idea of who they want to learn from, what they want to learn, and what their final goal is.
Now, throughout the book, you have these little breakout boxes. I just totally love this idea. Some of them have, like advice and tips and that sort of thing. And then some of them have actual exercises where folks can kind of apply what they've just read in the book to something practical that they can do outside of the book. Let's unpack that idea a little bit, because that was super cool. What made you decide to organize it that way, and why is it so awesome?
Oh, thank you. Well, really, I think that the best teacher in herbalism is experience. And as I'm going through each of the sections in the book, I want to make sure that they comprehend it. I want to make sure that they have a deeper connection to the herbs and to the ideas in the book. And towards the end of the book, there are herbal remedies and, formulations. Now, the first section with the formulations is going to be working with the 35 herbs that are in the book. And the additional remedies is where you could take the time and learn first about the other herbs that are in those formulas and then create those. And yes, by the end, you have your own medicine chest, your own apothecary in your home.
Super cool. In the fourth part of the book, you dig into the basic energetics of herbalism. So this is an idea I think we should get into for folks. If you could explain it to us a little bit more, what you mean by this. What do you mean by energetics, and how does that play a role in the world of herbalism?
Well, energetics is just noticing patterns within the plants and the humans themselves. And as an herbalist, I think one of the biggest mistakes some of, I should say, beginner herbalists do is decide that this herb for this condition. And knowing and understanding energetics will make you a better herbalist, because you will be able to choose an herb for each individual based on their own constitution, based on the tissue states, and you can really dive deep into learning more about the plants and what they can do by their taste and by their own energetics and the four qualities. So the four qualities, you have, temperature as well as tissue states. So you have hot, you have cold, you have moist or dry. And these are balanced with the individual. So if the individual is warm and dry, you want to balance it with a cool and moist herb. Herbalism is all about balance and homeostasis.
Now, you mentioned that there's 35 herbs in the book that you cover. I was super stoked when I saw that you started it off with black walnut.
Yeah.
That was way cool. I think it's black walnut's such a useful plant, but you don't see it, especially in beginner books, you don't see it included very often at all. So it was really cool to see it. But how did you choose these 35 plants? I know in my experience in the books that I've written, I really have struggled with narrowing it down to this, 35 plants or whatever it might be. Because, a lot of times you'll see in some books where they want to cover like the most exotic and off the wall types of plants that you don't see in other books, so they're like, oh, I'm going to do something different, which is cool. And it's fun to explore those plants, but touching on plants that are a little more accessible to people, especially for beginners, I think that's a really smart way to do it.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how many times I've heard some people say they've gotten a book on herbalism and they didn't know how to get a hold of some of those herbs in it, so they couldn't continue with making the remedies. And I just wanted to make sure that the readers of my book could.
Now, your book includes, it's a blend of both cultivated and wild plants?
Yeah, pretty much. I have gardens here. I have wooded area here. I have like wetlands here too. So it's kind of like different areas, but you can also grow or plant them around you.
Now, the subtitle of the book, like I mentioned, is How to Build and Use Your Own Apothecary. So I think that we should unpack that too. I suppose we should start with what is an apothecary? And then what advice do you have for listeners on how to create and use their own?
Sure. An apothecary is just basically your own medicine chest at home. And, when I say start your own apothecary and being an herbalist, to me, it's not the number of herbs that you know. It's the number of herbs you know really well. And then you can really go into the researching and how to utilize and work with that herb. And then start making some simple remedies based on that. And then after that, it's about tasting them and connecting with those herbs too.
I think that was one of your tips in one of those breakout boxes in the section about the herbs in that chapter. It was pick 5 of these herbs and really dig into them deeper.
Yes.
I tell people the same thing. I think it's so important. Instead of trying to know one thing about a bunch of plants, to know a bunch of things about one plant is going to be way more valuable.
Oh, absolutely. Just like I said, the energetics.
You also include some advice in the book for folks that are harvesting from the wild.
I wanted people to understand that there are some harvesting rules. You don't want to just go out and take whatever you want. And, especially for greed, people are selling, they're going out harvesting a bunch of ginseng, say, and they're selling it to the highest bidder. We really need to consider having some of these wild populations for future generations. So I'm really big on the harvesting rules, as well as sustainability is big in my book too. When it comes to essential oils, I do have some essential oils here in the house, and I will use them and add them to some of my oils and occasionally do the aromatherapy. But I use them sparingly because I know that it takes a large amount of plant material to produce that small bottle. So I would rather use the whole herb and prepare my own herbal preparations. And I wanted the readers to understand that as well.
Here at Small House, we use occasionally some essential oils in some of the products that we offer, but for the most part, it's whole herb. And for me, I think that an important part of that component is the relationship with the plant itself, being able to see the plant as much as I can through its entire life cycle and utilizing every part of it. A lot of these essential oils are made from just one particular part of a plant, whereas with many plants, like you talk about in your book, you know, the roots, the flowers, the bark, the leaves, so many parts of it are useful for so many different things.
Yeah, you know, the whole plant contains more constituents than just the volatile oils. So if you're using just the volatile oils and the essential oils alone for all your medicinal needs, you're missing out on different medicinal actions because those volatile oils don't have every single medicinal action in them either.
You had mentioned that you also have some online classes. Could you tell us a little bit more about some of those?
I just started herbalistmentor.com, and that was really to go along with this book and help in the training training. So it's all about training and resources and mentorship. I do offer mentorship packages, and this is for any student. So you don't have to be a clinical herbalist. I really wanted to be there for anybody that needs me. So you can purchase just a few hours of my time and ask me any questions, and I can help you, with your own learning journey. There is a free membership that I started, and in there I offer 4 different video presentations right now, but I will be offering other videos in the future. I might even offer some plant walks, but it is totally free. So you can go and listen to them. One of them is that Navigating the Study of Herbalism, which I think everybody needs to watch. And then down the road, I haven't started it yet, I will be offering a course that is an extension of the book. I will first start a video series where I'm demonstrating each one of those exercises in the Herbalist Guide. So for those people that need visual learning, they're reading the exercise, but they would rather see it done. I am going to be doing each one of those in a video series, and that will be available for purchasing here in the near future.
Oh, that is super cool. I love that. So we're going to need all of those links, Mary. Let's have them.
All right. So it's herbalistmentor.com, and that's where you're going to get the training resources and mentorship packages. I am also on ancestralherbology.com, where that's going to be about my consultations and my events. And I do have some articles in there too. I am on TikTok at Simple Training Herbalist. I am on Instagram at Ancestral Herbology, and I'm on Facebook at Mary Colvin Clinical Herbalist.
Fantastic. I'm going to put all those links, of course, in the show notes so folks can just click on through if they're interested in checking it out. And where can we get a copy of your new book?
Well, you can go to Skyhorse Publishing if you want, and there you can choose some different avenues to purchase and pre-order.
You heard it here, folks. The Herbalist Guide, How to Build and Use Your Own Apothecary, the brand new book from Mary Colvin. It's now available everywhere the books are sold. Mary, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. It was such a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Bevin. I enjoyed it.
Can you believe it? We've come to the end of yet another show. Big thanks to Mary Colvin for being our guest today, and to all of you for tuning in. Remember, if you enjoy the podcast, you can always show your support by joining our Patreon community. You can find that link and much more at seedsandreadspodcast.com. This episode was edited and produced by all of us here at Small House Farm, and the music we're enjoying right now is The Funky Groove from Momot Music. Thanks again for joining us, friends. I'm Bevin Cohen, and we'll see you next time.